This program is provided by Universal Genesis.
All right, let's do something a little different today. We're going to take some of the biggest names in ancient Greek philosophy, the absolute legends, and put them through their very own sorting ceremony. It's going to be a showdown to figure out what they were all really up to.
Right? Think about it. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. What if we could sort them into philosophical houses? It's a fun way to get at a really deep question. What was their philosophy actually trying to do? And of course, for any sorting ceremony worth its salt, you need a totally impartial judge. You need a philosophical sorting hat.
And as it turns out, history has already given us the perfect guy for the job.
I want you to meet Johann Jakob Brucker. Now, what's so cool about this guy is that back in the 18th century, he decided to write a history of philosophy, but he didn't care about who was most famous or influential. Nope, he didn't praise them, he didn't dunk on them, he just sorted them based on one simple, incredibly powerful question.
He just looked at a philosophy and asked, what is this thing doing? That's it. Is it trying to explain how the world works like a machine? Or is it trying to tell us a story about our purpose, our meaning, and our place in the universe? That one question, that's the only rule for our entire sorting ceremony today.
And that one question, well, it neatly splits the entire philosophical world into two opposing teams. So let's lay out the rules of the game. It's Team Reason versus Team Story.
So here's the breakdown. Team Reason is all about explaining how the world works. They use observation, they use logic, and they tend to keep all that stuff about gods and divine plans at arm's length. Then you've got Team Story. They're focused on meaning. They're asking about purpose, they use big ideas from metaphysics, and yeah, their philosophies tend to get pretty cozy with theology. Okay, the teams are set, the stage is ready.
So let's get this sorting started. And our very first philosopher to step up to the hat is one of the originals, Thales of Miletus. Now, Thales' big idea was that everything, and he meant everything, is fundamentally made of water. I know, it sounds a little simple to us now, but think about what he's actually doing. He is explaining the entire cosmos with a natural substance, not some myth about angry gods. He's asking, what's this thing made of?
He's trying to explain how the world works. The sorting hat barely touches his head before it shouts, Team Reason. That's the first point on the board.
And boom! Team Reason is on a roll. Folly's own students, Anaximander and Anaximenes, they just keep that project going. Anaximander says the source of everything is the indefinite, some kind of boundless stuff. Anaximenes says, no, it's air. But you see the goal, right? It's the same. Explain nature using natural stuff. Team Reason is racking up points early.
But wait a minute. Just when you think this is going to be a runaway, a new voice enters the ring. And this guy's about to change the game completely. Let's talk about Pythagoras.
Yep, the triangle guy. But for Pythagoras, numbers were so much more than tools for measuring stuff. He believed the world wasn't just described by numbers. He thought it was literally made of them. For him, numbers were sacred, they were mystical, they were the secret code of the universe. He wasn't just explaining a system, he was revealing a hidden divine order. And that move, turning numbers into this cosmic key, this source of deeper meaning, that makes Pythagoras the very first member of Team Story. The game is on.
And he is not alone for long. Suddenly, Team Story starts building some serious momentum. You've got Heraclitus, who says the world is always changing, always in flux, but it's guided by this divine principle he calls the logos. That's a story. Then Parmenides comes along and says all that change you see is just an illusion. True reality is this single, eternal, unchanging one. That is absolutely a quest for ultimate meaning.
Okay, let's hit pause and check the scoreboard. We've got Thales and his crew holding it down for Team Reason, and then Pythagoras, Heraclitus, and Parmenides repping Team Story. We are all tied up, 3-3. It is anyone's game, and it's all going to come down to the heavyweights.
All right, next up to face the sorting hat is Democritus, a thinker that our judge, Brucker, was a huge fan of.
Now, listen to this idea, because it is just startlingly modern. Democritus said that everything, you, me, the stars, is just made of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms, and they're all just moving around in empty space. That's it. No divine plan, no deeper purpose, just matter and the void, following basic rules. He's all about the world's machinery.
And that is a massive, undeniable point for Team Reason. Democritus puts them back in the lead with a theory that sounds like it's straight out of a modern physics textbook.
But now we get to the Titans, the names everybody knows. And first up is the man who completely changed the course of philosophy, Socrates.
See, Socrates pulled off this massive pivot. He basically stopped asking, what is the world made of? And he started asking, how are we supposed to live? His entire focus shifted away from the natural world and zoomed right in on human ethics, on virtue, on the meaning of a good life. And that turn towards ethics, that search for the right way to live, that is fundamentally about telling a story of meaning. So even with his super logical method, Socrates' ultimate goal lands him squarely on team story. And just like that, the score is tied again, 4-4. It all comes down to the final two.
This is it, the ultimate showdown. You've got Socrates' star student, Plato, going up against Plato's own star student, Aristotle, and right here, this is where the two paths of philosophy are going to split wide open. Plato, carrying the banner high for team story, argues that this world we see is just a shadow, a cheap copy of a more real, perfect world of forms. His whole philosophy is this epic story about escaping our flawed reality to get to the truth. But then his student Aristotle, he just wasn't buying it. For Aristotle, a clear champion for team reason, this world is the one that matters. His life's work was all about observing, categorizing, and understanding the world right here in front of us. He basically laid the groundwork for the scientific method.
So why does any of this matter? It's a fun game, but what's the point? Well, this split didn't just end with Plato and Aristotle. This great divide basically defined two major lines of thought that have been running through all of Western history ever since.
And here's the real takeaway. The history of philosophy, and maybe you could say the history of human thought, is really just the record of these two drives getting all tangled up with each other. The drive to explain how things work, and the deep human need to figure out what it all means. For centuries, these two lines have crossed, they've battled, and they've shaped the world we live in.
Which, of course, brings us to the final and maybe most important question, the one for you. When you look out at the world, when you really try to understand it, what's your first impulse? Are you trying to figure out the mechanics of how it all works? Or are you trying to find your place inside a bigger story of meaning? In other words, which team are you on?
This program is provided by Universal Genesis.